の谷間の暗闇に
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Timely Action Hour. This is the show where we talk about everything from comic books to video games and everything in between. My name is Aidan, and I hope that you're doing well today. This is going to be a continuation of a story I did recently. I recently did a review of The Night Gwen Stacy Died, and that is sort of the prelude of this story that I'm about to review. This is The Amazing Spider-Man, the original Clone Saga. This is quite a hefty tome. As you can see, here is the back, the spine, and the front. And in total, there are 495 pages, although a lot of this is the aftermath and leading up until the 90s Clone Saga, which is a sequel to this. But the majority of the original Clone Saga is actually quite brief, because it's, only a few months long in the original series. And let me find the exact ending here. Close. Fight this guy. Clone shenanigans. Go back to the bridge. Psychological torture. Villain reveal. So it goes until page 240, and then we get the following issue, which is the wrap-up, where Peter's still dealing with everything. But it goes from The Amazing Spider-Man number 139 to 150. Everything else that is collected in here is Giant-Sized Spider-Man number 5, and Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issues 25 to 31, as well as issues 149 and 162 and 63, as well as annual number 8. And again, this is all, leading up until the return of the clone. So it begins in August of 1974. It's been written in the story, it says it's been a few months since Gwen died, but it's been over a year in real time. And the original reason as to why this story was created is because Stan Lee, the co-creator of Spider-Man, and at the time was the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, he was getting a lot of angry letters and people actually going up to him and saying, "We don't like that Gwen Stacy died, bring her back, or do something to reverse this story." So Stan was like, okay, well, Jerry Conway is writing Spider-Man at this point. I just give him notes since I'm still involved in the character, but he's the guy writing it, so I'll just talk to Jerry and have him write a story that brings Gwen back to life. And Jerry Conway's like, well, I just wrote a story last year about how she's dead, and the whole thing, there was a policy at Marvel where they said dead means dead. So if a character dies, then they're over with. But, as we know now, that didn't stay around for much longer. But basically, he's like, okay, well, I'm reading this magazine about science, and they talk about cloning, so I'll just say that we have a clone of Gwen who is alive, so that Peter can romance her, or continue his romance with Gwen, because she has all of Gwen's memories, and is a genetic match to her, but it's not the same, because clones do not have souls. Well, at least in my reading of anything that has clones in them. But basically, we are reintroduced to a character named the Jackal, who had hired the Punisher to kill Spider-Man, which was the Punisher's first appearance. Well, he didn't hire him, he manipulated Frank into believing that Spider-Man was a bad guy, so he would kill him, as Frank is one to do. But since Spider-Man survived, the Jackal has been secretly trying to screw with him because, as we later learn, the Jackal knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And the story begins. I don't know why I'm dwelling on this. Well, I know why I'm dwelling on this, but at the beginning of the story, Liz Allen, a friend of Peter Parker, with whom he went to high school, she is helping him get a new apartment, and they are in this neighborhood called Chelsea. I've never been to New York City, so I don't know, but they're in Chelsea, and I think it's on the Lower East Side or Lower West Side. Again, no idea. But they find an apartment, and it is $130 per month for rent. In August of 1974, a college student who was a freelance photographer for a newspaper could afford to pay $130 per month for rent of an apartment in New York City. In December 2025, that is unheard of. But basically, Peter has to move into a new pad because Harry either kicked him out or is in recovery in Europe. I think he's in recovery because of his drug addiction, but Peter has to move into this place, and he's happy with that because he can afford it, and he doesn't have to move back in with his geriatric aunt. And speaking of Aunt May, she runs into this clone of Gwen that was created by the Jackal, and I'm gonna skim over a lot of this because with everything I recommend that you read these stories for yourself. But before that, Peter fights this cool new villain called the Grizzly, who is this big guy in a grizzly costume, but he's really strong. But he was working for the Jackal. Then Aunt May runs into the clone of Gwen, and she's like, "Oh, Peter, I saw Gwen, and now I'm having a heart attack," because she's like 105 years old, so that's gonna happen with her. But also during this time, Peter and Mary Jane are developing their relationship because they had gone on a few dates before, but then Peter and Gwen went steady. Now she's dead. Oh, and we also introduce a new love interest possibility in this story called Glory Grant, who is a model but will go on to work as the new secretary for J. Jonah Jameson. And that doesn't mean that Betty Brant is out of the job. She's just a second secretary. Oh, and speaking of Betty, she shows up briefly because her husband Ned Leeds is part of the story, and I'll get into that later. But Peter and Mary Jane, after Peter takes Glory out on a couple of dates, but then they decide to remain friends because they don't have a lot in common. Like, they're both young and beautiful and live in the same building, and they have an interest in reporting on the news, or at least that's just their profession. But they don't really have a lot in common, so they just become friends. And it's realistic. If you go on a date with a person for a few times and you realize, oh, we don't get that connection, but I still want to hang out with this person. That has happened to me before, so I wholeheartedly buy this. And the writing also sells it. And the artwork throughout is very, very good. We get written by Jerry Conway, Archie Goodwin, and Bill Mantlo. and illustrations by Ross Andrew, Gil Kane, Jim Mooney, Frank Miller, Frank Springer, Sal Buscema, and Mark Bagley. And like I said, a lot of this just has when the clones come back, and then leading up into the second Clone Saga. But Peter and Mary Jane start to blossom in their relationship more steadily, because Mary Jane really helped Peter deal with the grief of Gwen's death, and she was caught in an explosion. Obviously she survives, but you know, she was injured at right. So Harry and Peter were living together, but then the apartment exploded and Harry is in rehab. That's why Peter needed the new place. But Peter checks in on Mary Jane and she's like, "Oh, I'm cool, Daddy-o. Say, you're handsome, I'm beautiful. Let's say we make this work." And you know, they do start to make it work. The Jackal systematically fucking with Peter's life because of the creation of the clone of Gwen, and he created the clone of Gwen to have sex with it, so that's very creepy. And he created the clone of Peter to kill it, or at least fight it. Yeah, he made the clone of Peter to kill it, but since it's a clone of Peter after he got bitten by the spider, he has the same powers, and so he's like, "Oh, so Peter's Spider-Man, okay." And I'm not going to reveal who the twist of the Jackal is, but that's because I want you to read it yourself. But basically, Jackal's like, "Okay, so now that I know that you're Spider-Man, I'm going to screw with your life, and I'm going to put the clone in the Spider-Man costume, and I'm going to kidnap Ned Leeds, and I'm going to make you fight your clone, or I'll kill Mr. Leeds, and since he's your friend and colleague, and you know, since we want to have this new villain called the Tarantula, I'm going to push the..." Jerry Conway is like, "I'm going to push this new villain called the Tarantula," and Jackal's like, "And I'm going to use him as my henchman for a bit, since, you know, he's Spider themed too." And yeah, so Peter defeats the clone, and he realizes that he's the real person because of his feelings for Mary Jane, because a clone can't feel the same emotions even though it's the same genetics, but that doesn't mean that the same experiences are imprinted in the clone, which is a bit flimsy, but I get it. But it's also, narratively speaking, doesn't necessarily tie up everything in a neat little bow. But they're like, "Okay, we got to get this out monthly." And yeah, that's the gist of what happens in the Clone Saga. Then we get team up with Daredevil, where they fight the Kingpin to wrap up the original. Then, like I said, we get everything where the clones come back, and that's really cool. But let me show you some of the artwork here. It is beautiful. I think that the artists all did a fantastic job, and the writers did a very good job themselves. Got some Hobgoblin action. And we get a lot of other villains showing up, like Mysterio, Kingpin, the Ghost of Green Goblin. It's just a hologram from Mysterio, Dr. Octopus, the Lizard, and just some random street thugs, and of course the Jackal and the Tarantula.
Snake Eyes! Ah! 88 teeth! Oh, Hammerhead! Oh no! Pussycat! Pussycat Puss! Batman! Double Header! Pickle Puss! Pumpkinhead! Neon Noodle! Jokebox Jaw! Wolfman! Ruff! Ruff! You're all under arrest!
But also, something I wanted to mention, which was ridiculous. Peter steals a guy's McDonald's because he's starving, or he's hungry, and he steals a guy's McDonald's. He's like, man, this McDonald's is so good.
He stole that guy's pizza!
And I'm like, did Marvel have a deal with McDonald's where they would have a promotion? I don't know. But I just think that's ridiculous. Also, at the end of issue 149, we get the first time that Peter and Mary Jane make love, and that's an important thing to note. Because once they get married, they mate like rabbits, but, you know, we don't obviously see it, but it's nice to see the first time that they cement their love for each other.
Oh, shoot! I think this is rigged. You want to try? So let me get this straight. This woman faces the most powerful supervillain ever, without falling to pieces. And I, Mr. Superhero, am whining about getting sick? Maybe I could learn a thing or two from her. A winner!
Stick with me, Tiger, and I'll teach you how to beat the odds.
Sorry about the rain. Seems like you're having nothing but water problems lately.
You know, right now, it really doesn't seem like a problem.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being horrific and 10 being amazing.
Say that again?
I would have to give Spider-Man the original Clone Saga a 7, because it wasn't spectacular.
Patrick, say that again.
That again.
But it was very good. And I think that, you know, because of its significance to the Spider-Man character, it does earn its merit. Because of the hell spawn that it created, I would have to, you know, take a few points off. But that's just my opinion. That's all I have to say for this episode of the National Timely Action Hour. Once again, my name is Aiden. At the time of recording, it is the 26th of December, 2025. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and had a Happy Hanukkah if you're Jewish, or whatever you celebrate. And this is going to be my last video of the year, and when I post this a few days later, I'll post my first video of 2026, because I'm an idiot and scheduled it that way, but, you know, live and learn. But thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and God bless you all. And if you're new to my show and want to check out more comic book related content, or maybe video game content like Fallout, this is a shirt I got for Christmas. Thank you, Mom. I know you're watching this, and I got some new comics from you and from Dad, so thank you, Dad. And thank you to all my family and friends for your love and support. And thank you to you, the viewer, for watching and showing your support by clicking the thumbs up button, subscribing if you're new to my channel, ringing the bell to be notified when I post a new video, sharing this with your friends if they're interested in this sort of content. And in the description of the video, I'll leave links to my Patreon page and merch store, so if you'd like to support this show financially, I'd greatly appreciate that. And I'll also leave links to my social media profile, so if you want to send me a message and stay up to date about my show, then please check that out. And I'll also leave a link to my podcast, so if you'd like to listen to my content but don't have time to watch a full video, then please subscribe there and share that with your friends. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.